Welcome back to Mega Man 04. Last time, we fought a turtle that I hate, and stopped a particle cannon. Unfortunately, we've reached the midpoint, which means Neo Arcadia has found Area 0. And so now the camp's currently on fire. So there are some enemies here that are a little annoying to get in other stages, so hey, if you want to grind these frogs for materials, well, it's actually not the best spot for that. Again, they're kind of in a weird spot that I'm not going to be able to get to for a little while. However, if you want to grind for an enemy and ruin your time score for this stage, this contains the only missable enemy in the entire game. That's right, there's an enemy that if you miss it, you just straight up cannot get its material until you start a New Game Plus and do this stage again. Yeah, it's a little rough, so if you're paranoid, you can go grind 9 of those. Otherwise, again, there's the chart. You can get a few of them, and have enough for whatever you need without necessarily having to max them out. Because again, your time score is going to suffer in this one on your first run. So yeah, I would recommend, just do that. If you ever want to get a better rank, just wait till New Game Plus. So these are the enemies you want to take care of and get the weapons of, but we also have enemies that give us little water cannons whenever you steal from them with a Z-Knuckle. You're going to want to nab those to put out the fires on the tents, and, just be a nice neighbor and save the people in the tents as well. So yeah, here's me going back and forth. Yeah, Maloids. Thankfully, the game was actually really nice about dropping Maloids. Which makes me sound like I'm trying to introduce myself to Reploids while wearing a fedora. I will also say, maybe get used to this stage and, try to find your fastest way to improve at it. Which, sounds like a regular thing for this game, because, this is kind of a game about knowing what you're doing, and practicing until you're perfect. So, it might sound weird that I'm specifically saying that. I'm mostly saying that because chances are you're probably going to be seeing it a lot. The stage itself is actually pretty easy. Other than having to focus on the Maloids, having to get rid of the fire isn't so bad. Rescuing all the humans, also pretty easy. But you will most likely be seeing the stage a bunch of times, cause we haven't yet reached the boss. As you might imagine, the boss is behind these guys, so now that we've saved everybody in the settlements, well, we haven't saved everybody. Nij is somewhere else, and, there's not a lot left to check. And of course, we have a boss to fight. And who else would we fight but the leader of the Einharjar warriors? It's Kraft. So we ended off the previous game with literally just Zero's original body. However, this guy also works as a foil for Zero. Yeah, what if Zero gave up real easy, and in order to save the people he loved, he did terrible things that didn't actually help the people he loved? That's pretty much Kraft here. He's helping Neo Arcadia destroy this camp, but not because he wants to kill the humans, it's because it's unsafe for the humans out here. So anyway, Kraft has a kind of a Swiss Army gun. That knife attack might not look too bad, but if it hits you, it's gonna take like a third of your HP. That's actually most of his attacks. He does a lot of damage, and if you're not using the nurse elf, you might want to consider that. That attack right there. Yeah, you have to dive down beneath him when he does that. So many runs were ruined because I could not get under that in time. This is a fight where you want to remain close to him. Your reaction time needs to be very good, because that knife attack is there to basically hit you if you're trying to stay too close to him. It's a bit of a gotcha. Plus, the shrapnel attack is also pretty good at hitting you. The missile attack is pretty good at zoning too. And again, he does a ton of damage. So yeah, Cubit Foxstar and Kraft are both bosses where, even when I was doing runs where I got hit, and just went through to the end to practice, he still killed me so many times. No, see, I've got to make this place unsafe. Because if they keep living here, then it's going to be unsafe for different reasons. Are you really both sidesing this? Yeah, I'm totally trying to do that. Look, if you just go back to Neo Arcadia, then you're safe. It's fine. If you live in the fascist society, no harm will come to you. Anyway, bye. You did it, Zero. You saved New York. Bad news, though. We do actually have to save one more person. Hey, wait a minute. You're the guy with the sword I hate. Zero, are you done telling them off? We're ready to find Nij. Alright, so we've got mid-game part 2. This one isn't anywhere near as long as 03. That's got, like, the longest mid-game in any, like, standard-ish Mega Man game. It is just the size of either other half of the game. Just in the middle, but yeah, this one is the 2 stages. The first one you can't return to, this one you can, a little bit. I mean, they should, but it's also just important to make sure they're not killed by particle beams, so even if they're gonna be snippy about it, we start making the world a better place by making sure it doesn't get exploded. That's problem number 1, and the one that you can solve by being an action hero. So, first stage was the Camp But Dangerous. And now we're off to prison. Alright, so, while we're on the whole save niche plan, we're at the midpoint of the game, which means we've gotten some pretty good cutscenes, so I think it's a good time to mention, of course, 04's remastered tracks. In this case, 04 gets remastered tracks Rockman 0 Physis. So once again, the remastered tracks do have drama tracks, but they're a little more like 01, where you're not really gonna get any new information from them. You're pretty much just gonna get voice-acted versions of scenes from this game, but in fairness, we have had some pretty good scenes so far, and we're going to get some other pretty good scenes, and, you know, stuff like the thing coming up you might want to hear voiced. Actually, thanks to the restoration patch that I'm using for this game, we did actually hear some of the voice acting, that is, in the drama tracks. But then it also voices the intro bit where they're in the truck and all. So this is Hell the Giant. He's a pretty easy boss. He's one of those that just hangs out in the background guys. You gotta stab his head. Hardest attack to dodge is probably that one, because you have to dodge under it. Although, in fairness, the falling debris can kind of muck up your plans to travel. You can see where they're going to fall based on the little rubble from the ceiling there. But yeah, nonetheless, it can fall in a really inconvenient spot and screw you over when you're trying to dodge, you know, one of the other attacks. Again, namely the one you have to dash under, but as long as you're able to keep up with the debris. Hell the Giant isn't really a big deal, despite being named Hell the Giant. But yeah, even 01, the drama tracks for that one had the Big Four, which introduced the Guardians speaking with one another, which was not a proper scene in the game. You were introduced to the Guardians at the pace of whatever missions you happen to be doing with them in them. So, I see Zero and Ciel's relationship as a platonic one, but one with a lot of respect between, both people in it, but yeah, this is very explicitly, Neige and Kraft fell in love. Unfortunately, again, Kraft thought the best idea was to make sure people live in fascism, because nothing bad ever happens to the people living in the fascist society. But, you know, if you try to go outside of it, then, you know, it's bad. He's gonna destroy everything outside of New Arcadia. So be in it and you'll be completely fine. So yes, I reiterate. Kraft is just Zero if he had bad ideas and did the wrong thing constantly. Also, his Swiss Army gun is kind of similar to the way Zero technically just has, like, the hilt of the Z-Saber, but then that's used for his other weapons to either kind of power them up or form different blades. Unfortunately, guess who's finally making an appearance in this game? Yeah, the guy who still does not understand why wiping out most of the population of the planet was a big deal. It's Weil. Yeah, we haven't seen him in his weird cone helmet this entire game, but he's back.
I'm still going to end the planet. Nina Nina Zero. You know, I'm actually a very good leader. You'll get 3 meals a day. They're not good meals, but you'll still eat 3 times, whether you want to or not. Are you mad, brother? I love it. It's so great. I'm just the worst.
Come on, Neige, she's the worst. If you don't get back to Neo Arcadia, you're gonna get hurt. Yeah, I can fight Kraft in a tiny room. I really hope I don't have to fight Kraft in a tiny room.
Zero and girl I don't know the name of.
Dang, that's actually pretty cool. Neige, no wonder you're a writer. I'm gonna go recontemplate my entire life. Alright, so weirdly enough, we haven't seen the results screen, but we got out of danger. That was nothing for a hardened journalist. As we know, all journalists carry flashbangs on their persons, just in case. It's basic stuff, really. It's a sign that journalism has been pretty gutted, because, you know, nowadays people just get paid pennies to, you know, go along with whatever, and they don't carry flashbangs on their persons. They definitely weren't going to leave you to die. If they look guilty, don't question them about it. Just don't. It'll be easier if she doesn't have to acknowledge that. Alright, so let's teleport back with absolutely no interruptions. That's the sound of an interruption, isn't it? I can't coordinates. Yeah, me neither. I'm kinda bad with those. So anyway, as you might imagine, the prison does have a way to block people from getting out. Right, so we're escaping the prison, and now that we've had some pretty cool scenes, I can finally talk about a thing I sort of wanted to mention at the end of 03, but I waited until now. You might have noticed that, we're halfway through the game, and there's a bunch of important characters we haven't seen yet. I mean, yeah, we haven't seen any of the other Resistance members, but I'm talking about the 3 remaining Guardians of the 4 Guardians. And I'm here to tell you, no, they haven't appeared yet, no, they will not appear later. They are simply absent from this game. So for a while, everybody was like, what is up with that? Why aren't they there? So, right, the initial answer can be found in the complete works. Why were the 4 Guardians excluded from 04? A lot of people ask that question, but the reason is simply because they all died at the end of 03, shielding Zero from the big explosion. But for some reason they still show up in the booklet for the soundtrack. That was just Nakayama being generous with his drawings. In the booklet of the 4th Zero soundtrack, there is an illustration of X standing on a tower, with beams coming from the 4 Guardians. I didn't ask Nakayama to draw it, though. He kind of already had it drawn. Tell us, Nakayama, what was the point in the timeline that image from? I'm not sure. When could it be? The time frame and events of the illustration were a little fuzzy, so we kind of just threw it in there. So yeah, that was the initial answer. Also, gorgeous background while I'm looking at it. And as you might imagine, a lot of people didn't like that answer. Especially me, as a child. Even as a kid, I tried not to take things as non-canon just because I didn't like them. But that's a thing I considered non-canon because I really didn't like that decision. More on that in a moment. We're gonna work back first. So yeah, despite everything, 19-point clear time. If I had just been 8 seconds faster, I'm sure that would have been 20. Alright, and so that is the escape mission. We're now done with the mid-game, although thanks to our efforts, the human settlement is a little friendlier to us, which I may have kind of revealed a bit early, because I mentioned I never go to the human settlement in the first half. So, you know, maybe that kind of implies that there's a reason I do go to it in the second half, and yeah, it's because they do get a little friendlier to you. So yeah, there is some time left in the video because we're actually gonna go around talking to people, including the people in the settlement. And maybe make a few things too. If we are able to, anyway. I don't know if we are. But yeah, I did not like that answer. Slightly more recently, there was a different answer. So let's see. I'll make sure to cite the page for it here, but somebody did do a translation of an interview. Seems there are 2 versions regarding what happened to the 3 Shithano members from the Rock Band Zero series. You Capcom's They're Off Somewhere Fighting for the Sake of Humanity theory, and the official complete works They Died Shielding Zero from Omega's Explosion theory. So in conclusion, what really happened to them? According to Neo Arcadia's official record, there is no documentation of the 3's activities following that incident. Therefore, their registry access was deleted. However, I can't deny the possibility of them fighting for the sake of humans someplace outside of the scope of New Arcadia's surveillance. Which reads to me as, somebody got yelled at. Cause yeah, that is a bit different. So yeah, the implication there is just, they're still alive, they just don't appear in this game because they're fighting Weil some other place. The thing is, though, I think with the drama tracks, I can actually accept that they are killed in the final battle. The main issue I have with the Guardians dying there is the fact that there's just no gravitas to it. Like, 03 is mostly pretty good with its storytelling, but the fact that the Guardians are almost non-existent for most of the story, and then they're just dead, does not sit well with me. Especially since nobody acknowledges it afterwards. Like, if in the ending, Zero's like, hey, what happened to the Guardians? And Zero's like, oh, they died. They died because sometimes explosions are dangerous, even when sometimes they aren't. And they had to shield you from it, even though there wasn't an animation for that. They were just standing there, but no, they covered you, and now they're dead. But yeah, I think with the drama tracks, that is the reason that I highly encourage you to listen to them, because I think that actually gives a little momentum to the Guardians in the end game. You know, it gives them a moment to kind of make their own decision. You know, they're fighting. X comes in, is like, hey, can you help out? And they're like, normally I wouldn't help Zero, but I'm also not gonna let him die. And like, that kind of being the lead up into they actually help Zero in the end. I think there is at least enough material there for it to not feel terrible that they're just killed by an explosion with absolutely nobody mentioning it. Cause yeah, that's the main thing that I don't like, is just nobody talks about it. There's nothing visually to indicate that. It's just the thing they said afterwards. And yeah, that just doesn't sit well with me, but if there's actually proper lead up to them dying, if they get that moment where at last they choose the right thing to do, even though in the end it'll be the death of them, that's something. That is something for them. So yeah, again, 03 is probably my favorite. And I do think it's pretty good at storytelling, but, you know, even for the gameplay quirks of this game, I do actually really like the storytelling of this one. I like the fact that we finally get to interact with humans. It's interesting that for, you know, pretty much the entire X series, they deliberately said, we do not see humans, we only see their actions. And, you know, some of their decisions, and the fact that they screwed over Repliforce. And now they come back and they think that Reploids are at fault for this because it's just been so long since this whole thing started that nobody really has a memory of it. They just know that many people died in the Elf War, and there's still a lot of bad blood for it, but now we're at the point of the game where Zero just did something selfless that he was going to do anyway, but, you know, he attributes it to the, you know, other humans in the settlement wanting to save Niche. They did say they wanted to, but, you know, he left out the part where they were going to abandon her because they were just kind of selfish and fearful. So yeah, I do like the midpoint. It might actually be my favorite midpoint in the series. Like, the whole thing with accidentally getting Copy X killed so Weil can take command, that's pretty good. But I like this bit of character development. It's a cool moment for Zero, and it's definitely a good moment for the humans where, you know, they're definitely very prickly at the start of the game, but now they've kind of come around on it, and they're still a little wary of Zero because they're going to be, but things are starting to look up, so yeah, cyber elves aren't dying as much, and maybe, just maybe, humans and Reploids can finally get along. Which will be nice because, there was that whole point where they were just living cozy lives while Reploids were being crushed to death in garbage disposals, but we can move past that.
Ooh.